we are moving. We missed the unveiling mystery of the 5 elements for optimal health at 2 o'clock, but we are starting right now. If you signed up for that class, please join us here. Cassandra's here ready for you to start this class. Also, in the movement of terrace, we are having yoga with Yoga Mais starting at 2. Now, let me remind you that there are so many activities happening. Please visit all of our vendors. Sonju with Healing Art, Joy with Healing Cacao. We have Gia, who is also going to start a class at 2. For those people who are always looking for natural ways to bring nourishment to your body, to your face, for hair care, Gaia's got you. They're starting a class at 2, and you can walk away with your own tincture, like your own aloe remedy for your hair. So please go over there if you sign up for the class, and if you haven't signed up, this is your time to sit in. We also have rock and slime. Now, this isn't just for youth. This isn't just for the little ones. Let me tell you, as an adult, I love putting my hands into some slime, and especially because there's different types of it. So come, be creative, tap into your child, and play. Okay, so again, 2 o'clock, we are having yoga here at the center stage. We are having unveiling mysteries of the 5 elements for optimal health with Cassandra Faye Floyd. And then we're also having reflective healing, a journey inward with the Healing and Justice Center also. All right, so we are getting ready. You got a minute to get to there, so we'll probably start in 5. Thank you.
All right.
And then where is our translator? Because we have translator.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
You're gonna be here for the 5 elements?
I believe so. How do I find? Because I signed up last week and I totally forgot what I signed up for. Do you have the list?
We have the list right over there on that table. You can check with Bree. Okay. And so, do you remember kind of what you were thinking around 2 you wanted to do?
Greetings, everyone. This is Cassandra Faye Floyd, also known as the Daughter of the Fates. I am going to be teaching a workshop here today in about 5 minutes on using the 5 elements to achieve optimal health. You here for the 5 elements workshop? You guys here for the 5 elements workshop? Okay, well, you should join me. You should consider it. It's great. All right. So I'm trying to figure out how to rig this so I can record it, but it may not happen, y'all. I'll be honest. I don't know. We shall see. Let's see.
No, Touchy. Gentle hands, baby. Gentle hands, baby. Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. See if that works.
No, you can take it.
Okay, that is probably going to happen.
Hello. Welcome. Okay.
Hey, good. You're gonna join the workshop?
Oh, well,
Please.
I'm a volunteer for
Okay.
the organizers, so I'm just checking in. I'm assigned to you as a vendor.
Awesome.
Oh, so my name's Tom.
Tommy, I'm Cassandra.
Cassandra.
Good
nice
to meet you.
Yeah, so I've got you and the other vendors over here, so I'm just kind of floating around.
Well, I need some volunteers to come and sit here and pretend they're interested for like 5 minutes
Yeah,
to
yeah.
maybe draw other people.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
That
so
sounds
maybe
good.
you and what's the other girl's name? Sasha.
There are a couple other girls who are volunteers. Let me see if I can get a
You
couple
would be wonderful.
people.
I would love you forever for it.
Yeah, of course. I'll be right back.
It is 2 o'clock, and now it's time. Welcome to today. My name is Lorena. I'm from India. I'm not in class today. I'm from Cassandra. I'm from a group of today. Very fast. Primero que nada, quiero darles la bienvenida a esta reunión institucional. Y también vamos a estar haciendo eventos, pero también vamos a activar actividades de So, what we're on to listen to your intelligence, very connected, our new journey today.
Hey, it's good to see you too. You ain't DJing today?
No, I work in the sound and stuff to help a little bit.
Nice. Your hair looks great. Oh, thank you. So y'all gonna chill with me for a minute? I think once I get going, people will be like, "Oh, what's she talking about?" Because it always happens that way.
You started too?
Now.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Yes.
I'm with it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll start with you two. Maybe I can. I'm gonna take my shoes off. Okay. So thank you so much for joining this workshop, which I am certain you will leave emboldened and empowered by the information, as it is information that is easily applicable to your daily life. And so the name of this workshop is Unveiling the Mysteries of the 5 Elements to Achieve Optimal Health, right? So just a little bit about who I am before I get started. My name is Cassandra Floyd. I am an ordained minister, but I also went to medical school, right? And the field of medicine that I work in is Chinese medicine, traditional Chinese medicine. But within the scope of traditional Chinese medicine, there are a variety of schools of thought. Absolutely, sit down. Yes. There are a variety of schools of thought. The school of thought that I most resonate with, which is why I use it in practice, is the 5 elements, which we'll talk about here in a second. Darn, I watched this. Anyway, so that's a little bit about that. So I have 4 degrees in the medical sciences, bachelor's of science in alternative medicine, a bachelor's of science in professional health sciences, master's degree in traditional Chinese medicine and acupuncture, and an associate's degree in massage therapy.
Let's go.
So that's my background. Also, I'm an ordained minister. I founded a temple 2 years ago called the Temple of Evolutionary Emergence. And the overall theme of this particular work is to bridge the gaps that have been created in the different fields. Bridge the gap between science and spirit, which 5 Elements helps you do, right? Bridge the gap. Oh, thank you so much. Do I have it on backwards? How?
You have it.
Yeah, right there. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. To bridge the gap between spirit and science, to bridge the gap between all of those things that have been purposefully separated and disassociated, because when you can create the chasm, you can exploit these areas, and you can keep people away from their own traditional knowledge and understanding. And the whole purpose, at least in this period in this particular period of human history, all mysteries that exist are created to disempower human beings. All mysteries that exist, all mysteries that are created to disempower humans. And so my work, whether it be as a practitioner or whether it is as a minister or as a political activist, is to demystify that which has been kept secret. That's what we're here for, okay? So I have been practicing medicine in one way or another for the last 10 years officially, right, with my degrees, but 22 years, with traditional medicine, things handed down by my grandmothers, so on and so forth, right? So getting right to it, because 50 minutes sounds like a long time, but every time I teach this workshop, people are like, no, not over yet, don't do it, right? That's a lot of information I'm trying to give you, but it is going to make so much sense. I have taught what I'm going to teach you today to 5th graders, and they've totally understood it, okay? So the reason I'm starting with this symbol that everybody is familiar with, the yin-yang symbol, is probably the greatest misunderstood symbol that exists. What do you think the yin-yang means?
Balance,
Yes, that's the common answer. What do you think yin-yang means?
like the shadow and the light.
That's one aspect, yes. What do you think yin-yang means?
Yeah, like a reflection of like different versions of you.
What do you think yin-yang means?
I think of it as like opposites. Yeah. Like,
That's one that, yes. All these things, yes. What do you think yin-yang means?
Kind of same.
Yep. What do you think yin-yang means? Yep, absolutely. So those are good. Those are better than most of the answers I get. And they're all attributes of this symbol. This symbol that we're looking at in 2-dimensional form is actually a 5-dimensional symbol that is a representation of the nature of everything that exists in the universe. Everything in the universe falls within this concept of the yin and the yang. And different cultures had different, every culture, by the way, had a version of this, even if they called it something else. One of the most common names for this symbol and its prolific nature throughout the universe is the cosmic egg. Has anybody ever heard of the concept of the cosmic egg? Okay, so some are saying yes, some are saying no. So the concept of the cosmic egg in goddess worshiping societies was that in the beginning, the great primordial abyss that we know as She, right, had an egg. She is a serpent. She is the great primordial dragon. And she had an egg, because reptiles lay eggs, right? And this egg held within it all the potential and all the creation possibilities that were to become the universe. And when that egg cracked, what science calls the Big Bang Theory is what the goddess worshiping societies called the cracking of the cosmic egg, okay? It represents all the potentialities that can ever exist in the universe in 5 dimensions. Past, present, and future exist simultaneously, okay? Right. And we know that, but we don't get taught that. We know it intuitively. The past is ever present. If the past wasn't ever present, there would be no need for us to be activists. You feel me? Right? If the past did not have an impact on our now, there would be no need for us to fight the power or whatever. You feel me? So it is a way to explain everything political and everything spiritual and everything physical and psychological and emotional. It all rests within this. So in the yin yang, and the reason it's important for me to start this way is because when I talk to you about the 5 elements, this is necessary to understand that this is always present, right? This is annoying, that it's always present, and how to understand what you're looking at in its presentation. So when this thing looks the way it's supposed to look, which is it's like your body. This is a representation of homeostasis. Anybody ever heard of the word homeostasis? Right? It's like your internal everything. It's your internal air conditioning unit. It's your internal heating unit. It's your internal hormonal fluctuation thing, right? And so what homeostasis looks like in the human body is you get too hot, your pores open up, you dump sweat to attempt to cool you off, right? And that's how you're constantly, this thing is constantly moving in and out of each other, attempting, like on a seesaw, you trying to keep the balance, and sometimes one side goes off and the other side goes off, and you use one to treat the other. If you are too hot and can't get cool, you don't want to use hot treatments and hot herbs to heal the disease. You want to use its opposite to heal the disease or address the issue. We call it the harmony of opposition, or the harmony of opposites. This is what this represents. They are mutually beneficial and at the same time mutually antagonistic, because they are opposites. Who was it that said that they're duality, right? While they are different in a representation of extremes, one cannot exist without the other. Okay? Now, 2 more things I'm going to tell you about this, and then we're going to move on. In the yin yang, so there are a lot of, spiritualists, and it's no shade to them. This is the most misunderstood symbol that there is, and that's no shade. It's just what it is, right? So you'll hear, spiritual types or hippie types talk about, the yin and the yang, and you see it everywhere on people's cars and shit. And it represents, right, the harmony between males and females, or they'll say something like, it represents the harmony between the divine feminine and the sacred masculine, right? You'll hear all of that stuff right now, but they don't know what they're talking about. So I'm just telling you, when you hear that, now you can say, that's only this much right. The harmony between the divine feminine and sacred masculine, represented by this symbol, which is 6,000 years old, this symbol, by the way, is between the mother and the son. Because people talk about the harmony between the divine feminine and the sacred masculine, and they automatically default to some bullshit. And it's boo things, you feel me? Like, it's mom and dad, it's husband, wife, it's man and woman. It is not. This symbol that is always attempting to maintain homeostasis between every being that exists, between every land, every star that exists, the male-female dynamic represented in this symbol is the mother and the son. That's why, and that theory is prolific throughout all of history, through every mythology, through every philosophy, and science, biology, that it is impossible, and we know that now biologically, it is impossible for male to have been on the earth before female. Males do not represent the generative process, right? They, as yang, help to assist the generative process. It is from the mother's body that, in her relationship with the earth, that this evolutionary process happened that allowed for the first male to be born. So before there was ever a father in human history, there was a son, and then he became father, not the other way around. This is important. It sounds like just philosophy or spirituality, but when you start to look at your own body and start to recognize symptoms that now you can treat yourself, instead of every time you have a symptom, you got to go to the doctor because something ain't right. Now you can be informed very practically about how you can show up for yourself, how you can show up for others, how you can show up for your children, right? So the mother and the son, even in the diagnostic process, which is this is used for, if something is awry in this relationship between the mother and the son. So one of the diagnoses is like yang blazing out of control, right? That's a diagnosis. The treatment for yang rising or yang blazing out of control is the mother must subdue the son. You understand? The mother must ankle, depending upon who you ask. The mother must anchor, subdue, or anchor, subdue, bridle the son. And so Lao Tzu, who is one of the contributing people that came up with yin yang theory, said of this relationship, in all things embrace the yin, because yang in its raw nature is always destructive. Yang in its original nature is always destructive. What is the evidence of that in the real world? Looking at what yang is, what is the example of yang being out of control and being destructive?
Humanity?
Be more specific.
War?
Huh?
War?
Be more specific and less broad.
When you're angry at other person, when you're angry and then you take it to another person.
No, I'm talking about like 5th grade simple.
Bullies?
Nope. I'm talking about in the world we live in today, the evidence.
Like war.
That's what she said.
Anger?
The evidence of yang energy being destructive. The burning down of the rainforest.
Oh, I
The pollution of the water. The desertification happening in different places, right? Where the fire energy of yang, left unbridled and unanchored by yin, becomes destructive. They're saying that the process of desertification is only a few hundred years old. The Sahara Desert used to be fertile, right? Used to have rivers and streams and gardens, but now we just assume that it's always been there. Desertification is a new phenomenon on this planet. It is a primary example of yang, unbridled by the yin, becoming destructive, right? So when you think about yang out of control, you think about when yang becomes out of control, when the mother is weak or deficient and does not have the energy to bridle the son, anchor the son, right? Then yang becomes out of control, and the first thing that it does is attack yin. It assaults yin, right? Because yin is substantial. Yin is the moon, it's the earth, it's the mother, it's water, it's trees, it's blood, it's those things that are tangible, substantive. You know what I'm saying? It's of substance, of depth, right? But all things yang are insubstantial. You know they're real. You know they exist. You can see the evidence of their existence, but they are completely intangible. Fire, you can see it. You can smell the result of it, but you can't smell it. You can't touch it, even though you can see it, right? But you know its potential damage. Oxygen, we can't see it. We know it's real. We wouldn't live without it, right? It is impactful, but what happens if you're in a room with too much oxygen? It'll kill you. Or what's the other risk? Is that it's explosive. It'll blow the whole place up, right? So it is without yin, oxygen, without yin is what? Right? The yin that we need are the hydrogen particles attached to the oxygen that's it's being bridled by the yin are the two hydrogens that make it what? Water, right? Anyway, I won't go that deep, but you need to know these things. The mother, water, trees, blood, flesh, bone, those things that we can see, touch, taste, feel, we know the impact of them, how the moon impacts the water. We can see the evidence of the moon making the tides rise and fall, making women go crazy during their menstrual cycle, whatever, right? So this is important. And then the other thing I will mention are these two symbols. So this is a representation of harmony. When these imbalances become extreme, this is what we call utmost yang, right? This is the desert. This is right here, where there's no yin present. It's all white. It's all yang with no yin present. Down here is and this represents noon, high noon. That's what this represents. Like when you put a time dial, right? What do they call it in the old days? A sundial. In the ground, you know it's high noon because the dial does not cast a shadow, right? This is this. In the negative or utmost yin, it is midnight on a dark moon, midnight on a new moon, right? No light present, no yang present, okay? And I could get real deep and political on y'all, but I'll save that for another day. But this symbol, which is 6,000 years old, you understand? Which means there's no yin present. You understand what I'm saying? Isn't it interesting that we live in the period of utmost yang? where the female generative energy has been completely removed from all major religions from the generative process. It's God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit, represented by a cross at high noon. I'm just saying. Anyway. All right, so let's get to it. This is the 5 elements. You can take a picture of it if you'd like, refer to it later. You can also, Google 5 elements charts, because this is just a very small synopsis of what exists in the charts, and it will become so helpful. You will really appreciate it, just learning those base foundations. Right now, today, I'm giving you the colors, the directions, and the organs that are represented by each of the elements, okay? Okay, so this star, right, represents, so most of you have heard of the 4 elements, but always within like the context of like European witchcraft or something. They were it's still based in the same thing. This is significantly older, substantially older, but you know, in the transferring of information, especially through the colonial process, a lot gets misinterpreted and, you know, misunderstood or whatever. But this is what it is in its origin. The elements are fire, earth, metal, and witchcraft, that would be considered air. Okay? Water and wood. Okay? These are the 5 elements. Each one of these elements represents an organ system that exists within you. And if you're looking at this symbol and you look at me, the 5 elements are appropriately placed. You have the heart up here, right? You have the liver here in the west. You have the spleen and stomach over here in the east, right? You have the lungs, which come all the way down to the bottom of your rib cage, so it's represented in the left, but the lower left, right? And then you have your kidneys, which correspond with your lungs. You got your lungs up here and your 2 kidneys down here, right? So when you're looking at your trunk, you're actually looking at this 5-point star, right? It also explains the relationship between these organs. So when I talked about the necessity of creating, let me say this, the necessity of dissecting information. When you get sick, right, you have to go to a specialist. You feel me? And so we have 10,000 different specialists. We got a specialist for every body part. You feel me? You got an eye doctor, you got an ear, nose, and throat doctor, you got a toe doctor, you feel me? You got all these, you got GI doctor and all of this stuff. All these dissections, why are those necessary? Now, this is my opinion, but it's still based in science. The dissections are necessary because human beings are commodities. It is not financially, economically beneficial to learn as a healer or a doctor how to address the issues of a whole human, right? So you have, quote, specializations that most of us just now have access to for the last maybe 50 to 75 years, right? These specializations that make it so that everybody can get their piece off the human commodity. And so when you get frustrated about how you can't get answers, how it seems like your doctor, you know, is supposed to know everything, but they never know anything, right? It is because of the necessary dichotomization, dissection of the human being to exploit this human economic process, right? It's true, it's what it is. So it becomes problematic when you learn a system of medicine that teaches you from the beginning that you are an organic whole and that everything that you think, quote, is a disease is not a disease. It is a symptom of a dysfunction in the organs, a miscommunication between the organs. This is universal harmony represented by the yin and yang. When something is off and you have a symptom, when one thing goes out of balance, the potential is for all other things to be thrown off balance. This is the method of communication. On the outside circle here, you see these arrows, right? This is called the birthing or generating cycle, okay? Now, using the analogy of the elements, fire gives birth to earth or generates earth, right? So there are 2 ideas about that. That in the beginning, the earth was a bowl of molten rock, then it like started raining or something, and then the rock became earth, right? Then the other thing is when you light a fire, anything yin that you put in the fire will burn until it becomes what? Ash, which is earth, right? So fire generates earth. Earth generates metal. That makes sense. Metal generates water. The idea about that is also twofold. Metal, back in the, this was the feudal China, where people were peasants and they worked the land. And so they started thinking about like how their life resembles what's happening in nature, the rivers and all of that stuff. And so metal, they would have metal tools and stuff, and they'd wake up and there'd be condensation all over the tools. And they were like, oh, the water must have came from the metal. So this is how they came up with the idea of metal generating water. But the other thing, and more common or modern Chinese medicine is about the mineral content in the water. The metal or mineral content of water, okay? Water generates wood, which makes sense, and wood generates fire. You have a little fire, you put more wood on it, the fire gets bigger. So wood generates fire. That's the outside relationship, the birthing or generating cycle. The inside arrows that go from organ to organ is called the controlling cycle. So fire controls metal. That makes sense. Metal controls wood. That too makes sense. Wood controls earth. Y'all live in California, so you know deforestation will cause mudslides because there's no root systems to hold the earth in place. So wood controls earth. Earth controls water. So you're thinking about riverbanks, how the earth stages the course of the water. And then water controls fire, right? So those are the two primary ways that your organs communicate with each other. We start with the analogy, we start with the analogy of the you can, I'm melanated, you feel me? Like, this is like medicine for me, you feel me? Like darkly melanated. And I don't get out in the sun enough anyway. Yes, you're absolutely welcome to move in the shade. So, anyway, let me turn this. Well, I'm gonna keep it here because I'm recording too. So, we use the analogy of the elements first because once you have an image in your mind, right? Now you can start to associate the behaviors of the elements with the organ system that corresponds with it, okay? So fire as the heart makes sense, right? The heart is the first thing that we can detect. We know it's the first thing that's active and moving at conception, right? And it determines your vitality, the heart. The heart determines if you have no energy, if you have high energy, or if you're, crazy or whatever. Like the heart determines all of that. So that's the organ. Now, where the yin and yang comes in is just like I told you. There's this harmony of opposites that exists in everything. In the organ, the yin organ, which is your major organ, is called your yin organ. It's called your yin organ, right? I'm gonna turn this down. Your yin organ, okay? It's opposite, and your yin organ is considered inside the body, okay? Now, in Western medicine, we've learned that everything from your mouth to your anus is considered outside the body, okay? Everything from the mouth along the digestive tract, everything from the mouth to the anus is considered outside the body. It only becomes a part of self when you eat. It only becomes a part of self once it's absorbed in the small intestines. Those things that you need, the nutrients, and then separated from that, those things that you don't need pass through the anus. Now, the ancients already knew that. Now, we're just learning that everything from the mouth to the anus is considered outside the body because it's not part of self yet, right? But the ancients already knew that. So you have your yang organ, which is considered the outside organ. You have your yin organ, which is your major organ, and its yang partner, which is the yang organ, the outside organ. So the heart and its yang partner is the small intestines, okay? The spleen is the major organ of the earth, and the stomach is its yang partner, because all of the energy that we associate with digesting food and that immediate process, the churning of food in the stomach, then the hormones associated with digestion that come from the pancreas, all of that is considered a part of the function of the spleen. Okay, So the spleen and the stomach represent the earth. And the reason the spleen and stomach represent the earth is because the spleen's job is to take all the food that we consume, all the stuff that we drink, and the oxygen that we breathe in its relationship with the lung, and transform the energy or the chi from those things that we take in, so it can distribute that energy. It can feed the other organs so that they too can do their job. Okay? So there are some versions of 5 elements that have the earth in the center and the other elements as a cross, like the cardinal directions, because they really focus on the importance of the spleen. If the spleen's energy is off, you messed up in the game, because nothing else can do their job adequately, right? And I'll talk to you about what that looks like.
Sorry, let's go this way.
So that's the earth. The metal is the lungs. The organ is the lungs, right? And its yang partner is the large intestines, right? We'll move on. I'll go through this quick because I'm going to talk to y'all about some of those things, what those symptoms look like, okay? And then water, the water element. Oh, and the color, obviously red. The color of the earth, obviously yellow. The color of metal is white. The color of the water element is, that's why I have it in blue and black. It's considered blue-black because this is not specifically talking about the water that comes like out of your tap. This is about the primordial water, like the oldest entity on the earth, which is water, right? The entity from which all living creatures sprung from, right? That water, the ancient water that binds us all, right? And the reason why is because the kidneys is how you treat ancestral trauma. If you have night terrors that you can't understand, or you know, and you think it might come from a victimized like ancestor, whatever, the kidneys are used spiritually in Chinese medicine to treat ancestral trauma, among other things, right? And it's also what binds you to your family. The kidneys are said in Chinese theory, it is said that your kidneys existed before your parents ever met. Your kidneys existed before your parents ever met. And what that means, it's a beautiful poetic way to say scientifically what we say now is you get 23 chromosomes from your mama, 23 chromosomes from your daddy, and that makes you who you are. It's like how you're bound to your family tree, right? It's your genetic inheritance. They just have a poetic way of saying something that's still very scientific, right? So they say you get half your essence from your mother, half your essence from your father, and that is what your genetic inheritance is. It will determine the quality of your life, the length of your life, and so on, right? You had a question? Okay. So then next is the wood element, which when I say wood, it's the representation of the entire tree, from the roots all the way to the leaves. And I'll explain why this is important a little bit later. But that's blue, black, that's green. The wood element is represented. The major organ is the liver. Its yang partner is the gallbladder. Okay? Now you know the organs. Now you know how they communicate with one another. Okay? Now, when you think about your internal organs, think about yourself. You are a whole entity, right? You have your own, you have a spirit, you have emotions, you understand? You have functions within your relationships with your family, right? You're a whole entity, a whole sovereign entity. Each one of your organs is a sovereign entity within the whole that is you. Each organ has its own spirit. Each organ has its own emotions. Each organ has its own likes and dislikes. Each organ has its own taste, its own smell, and also external sense organs. How these organs help you to interact with and relate to the outside world. Okay? So with the heart is said, and this is in every culture on earth, it's important to know these things because, again, the dissection keeps us away from knowing the intricacies of other philosophies, other theories, other mythologies, and how they're all related, and they all came from the same places relatively, right? So when you're talking about, like in the Bible says what about, the Bible says a lot about the heart, but one of the things that it says about the heart is that the truth of the heart is spoken from the tongue, right? The truth of the heart is spoken from the tongue, right? And what else does it say? It says both life and death reside in the tongue. That's what the scriptures say. You know, I grew up in the church. You feel me? But that is a philosophical, a very young, historically philosophical way to say what the Chinese have been saying for 6,000 years. That whatever is going on in the heart will be articulated through the tongue, because the roots of the tongue are said to emanate from the heart. So that sounds very philosophical, but in practice, what does that look like? Say a person has had a stroke, and do you know what aphasia is?
What happens after a stroke?
Aphasia is the aspect of losing your ability to speak after a stroke. There's one. No, that's no, it's not Bell palsy. It's facial paralysis. I forget the scientific name, but it's facial paralysis. It's one of those things that can happen. But one of the things that is common, depending upon the type of stroke, you may lose your ability to speak. Right? You can cure that through treating the heart channel. When you see children who have speech impediments or stuttering in particular, can be cured in a very short period of time through treating the heart. That is the science. So we have all the depends on what else is going on with the child. That's a diagnostic process, but typically it doesn't take very long, right? So what happens is, because the heart doesn't just go dysfunctional, you'd have to do a diagnostic process to determine what has impacted the heart of the child that has caused this external symptom, which is their inability to speak clearly, right? And so, so even while it's important, because as we people, all people, but scientifically, melanated people in particular, are what we call circular learners. We can't just learn things one way linearly. It needs to make sense in our brain. We need to be able to touch it, see if it really works. Like we need to hear it, then we need to see it, then we need to say it for it to stick. And so it's important to know the philosophy, right? And we call it philosophy because we do not understand the language. When I first started medical school, and all my undergraduate work, my primary undergraduate work was in the Western sciences. It was the geeky stuff. I wanted to know the active constituents and the chemicals that made the plant do what it do. That's what my background was Western science. So my first year in Chinese med school, I struggled. All this poetry and artistic, language, trying to explain what's happening in the body. I was like, oh my God, I'm not gonna make it. And then there was something that flipped, because what the West has done has diminished the scientific significance of thousands of years of observation. And because the language doesn't compute to the Western mind, they say that somehow it's less scientific. So when you have a Chinese person talking about, a she ghost that harasses the dreams of a child, and the outcome of that is premature ejaculation, like baby boys who are pubescent, who have what they call the medical language is seminal emission, but it's like they have wet dreams, right? They are leaking semen in their dreams. The diagnosis in classics was, okay, she demon is robbing the baby of his essence at night. So it's poetic language, but the treatment is still the same. The herbs are still the same. The acupuncture points are still the same. So who cares? That's how they related in allegory, right? To, especially for a layperson. I can talk to you like you got your liver yang rising, causing, migraines or whatever, or you got, liver qi stagnation, disrupting your spleen energy, and you'd be like, what? But if I tell you a story about what this means, you're like, oh, that makes sense, you see? So it was two different languages saying the same thing. One is not less scientific than the other, right? So that's why the stories are important. I can say to you that the heart governs the tongue, or opens into the tongue, and that don't make no sense to you. But if I say, tell you what, you can cure stuttering, you can cure aphasia through treating the heart channel, you're like, that makes sense, right? That makes sense in terms of a diagnosis or symptom, right? Okay. The other thing that is important about the heart, it's spirit, because I told you each organ has a spirit. I'm trying to see what the time is. Okay, I'm good. Each organ has a spirit. And the spirit of the heart is called the Shen, S-H-E-N. The Shen controls the mind, the conscious mind and the subconscious mind. In controlling the mind, so it's different than the brain. This is about our intellect, right? It controls the function of the mind, right? So say a person comes to me and they're saying, for the last 3 weeks, I have not been able to sleep for 3 hours a night. Every night at 3 o'clock in the morning, I am up and cannot go back to sleep, right? Well, first, because I know that the heart governs the mind, both the subconscious and the conscious mind, it governs sleep. How restful we sleep. Are we, what do you call it? Take a seat if you want to. Not forcing you, but if you want to. Yes. So if you're having, what do you call it? Night terrors, dream disturbed sleep. The dream is so disruptive that it is, you can't get back to sleep. It's plaguing you all day. You're thinking about this crazy dream all day, right? Then you know that something is happening with the heart. It could be something happening with these two corresponding organs. Is it something that you ate over the last 3 weeks that's different, that's causing your heart energy to be harassing your mind, right? Or is it something stress related? Because the liver is the organ most affected by stress, right? So that's one thing. The other thing in controlling the mind that is so important is, we call it psychology. Anything that is presenting as either a diagnosed or undiagnosed psychological dysfunction is a symptom of the heart. Psychopathy, sociopathy, manic depression, bipolar depression, if it's diagnosable or even if it has not been diagnosed, the heart is the start. Something is happening with the heart that is disrupting your ability to think rationally, to execute daily tasks in a rational, calm manner, right? And the last thing I'll say about the heart is, now, even in Western medicine, even in the Western sciences, they have finally acknowledged that it is not the brain that governs the heart, it is the heart that impacts the function of the brain in Western medicine, right? They say that our heart is our primary mechanism of understanding the world around us. Why is that? Because there's more synaptic activity that happens. You know what synapses is, right? Generally, okay, in your brain, right? It's like when they say a new idea forms, like a new idea becomes a part of you. So say you're learning something and you're trying to get it and you're trying to get it. And when you finally get it, you're like, oh my God, I got it, right? That is the connecting of two synapses to concretize that idea, to make it now become a part of self, right? Well, there's more synaptic activity in the heart than there is the brain. So here the Chinese have been saying, 6,000 years, the heart controls the mind, the heart governs the mind, the heart controls the mind. Western science is like, y'all are crazy, that's ooga booga, it's the heart, it's the brain that controls everything. The heart controls the mind, and now even Western medicine is conceding that this is true. And the reason that that's the case is because the synaptic activity, along with the electric activity of our heart, right? The SA nodes firing to keep the heart going, sends out an electromagnetic field anywhere from 6 to 9 feet outside of yourself. So what we call intuition is this electromagnetic field always alerting us of our surroundings, right? It's when you get this funny feeling that somebody's following you, and even before you look behind you, like, something's up, right? And you say, oh, it's my gut intuition, or it's my gut feeling. It is it's this electromagnetic field that has detected the harm to your person before you are even conscious of it. The heart does that. The heart is always, they say the heart processes this EMF field. The heart processes anywhere from 25,000 to 75,000 bits of information every day. Every day.
The heart?
The heart.
Pieces of information that could be new and old?
It doesn't matter. All information. Like, ooh, I'm touching grass. You're not thinking about that consciously, but your heart is always keeping an eye out. Because what's the body designed to do? Not just heal. The primary function of every organism is to preserve its life, to see it live on in its progeny. Is the recreation of self. And so that's the protection of health, that's the healing of self, that's making sure there are no threats around that's going to encroach on your ability to live, to survive, right? And so the heart does that work, okay? So anyway, the next organ The next organ is the spleen and stomach. And the emotion of the heart, that was the last thing I wanted to say. I'm gonna go through these emotions quick because we only got a few minutes. The emotion of the heart is joy. But what they say about joy, some modern interpretations now are saying sadness, right? Which impacts the heart, but joy is the big thing, because the joy that they observed back in the day was that kind of, when you see a person that's seriously mentally ill, right? What are some of the characteristics? Shifty eyes, like they're laughing, kind of that crazy laugh, like that kind of. The Joker is a primary example of the emperor or the Shin in distress. The Joker. And the reason is because this is deep, because it's everywhere. Once you see it, once you learn 5 elements, it's everywhere. The Joker is a quintessential color and everything of this relationship of disharmony between the liver and the heart, or the wood and the fire, because he's crazy. His heart has been harassed. So every time you see him, he has the fake smile, right? He has, even when he's sad, he's like laughing crazy, right? And he's psychotic, right? He is psychotic because of trauma done. They talk about his life, trauma done to him, and the trauma impacts the wood. The emotions of the wood are rage, resentment, anger, frustration, jealousy, envy, and depression. These are the emotions of the wood. This happening over and over and over and over and over again, unresolved and untreated as a trauma, impacts the heart, making you insane. He is a primary character, and I'm convinced they wrote his character based on 5 Elements theory. Also, the Incredible Hulk, his character was written based on the liver. He's calm, he's cool. You know what they say about the liver? When it's not agitated, just like a tree, because the wood element is the tree. When there's no wind and everything's chill, the tree is just calm, right? It's serene, it's peaceful. When the liver is in distress, the treatment is called calm and soothe the wood. That's the name of the treatment, calm and soothe the wood. When the wood is not calm, when it is not anchored, right, then because of emotional trauma and stuff, right, then it becomes aggressive, right? It becomes what we call type A personalities. You've heard of this type A personality, when people just fly off the handle for the smallest thing, like they chill 1 minute, next minute they're like, rah! Like the Hulk, who is cool, calm, and collective. He's a science guy. He's brilliant, right? He's sharp. This is also, his brilliance is the wood element. His brilliance is the wood element, right? He's a scientist. He can see all the things and how they work together. He's a cool guy, almost nerdy, right? But when he gets mad, when he senses oppression, that's a liver element. They hate oppression. The wood element hates oppression. When he senses oppression, he gets mad, and he gets green, and he gets aggressive, and he gets destructive. That's the Incredible Hulk. I was like, they have written this character directly after this too. Anyway, so joy is madness. In when they talk about joy here, it's not happiness, it's madness, it's insanity. The emotion of the spleen is pensiveness, anxiety, worry. Nitpicking, when you're like constantly thinking about stuff. You're like, oh my God, I got to do this, I got to do that, I got to do this, I got to do that, right? Anxious, worry. That is what injures the spleen, or that's the emotion associated with injury to the spleen. Metal is grief. So you know how when you cry really hard, you start hyperventilating? Like that? This is an expression of the metal, of the lungs, trying to heal itself. When you cry a good cry to the point of hyperventilation, you're opening up the bronchioles and moving that chi out, clearing that grief out so it does not get stuck. But what happens when you live in a society that does not allow human beings to grieve adequately, makes people uncomfortable to cry in public? We suck it down. You see people do it, right? They'll start crying and they'll be like, they're stuffing the grief down. The way this can look over time is in a person who's never had any kind of respiratory issues, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years down the line, all of a sudden they have chest oppression. It's hard as hell for them to draw air. They have chronic bouts of respiratory issues, right? They have every year they get pneumonia, or every year they get some bout of emphysema, even if they don't smoke, right? Another thing that happens is if grief is stuck, it's buried deep in these restricted bronchioles, it can also impact the skin. It can come out as it can try to vent itself. It's skin rashes, eczema, psoriasis, unexplained skin issues after this grief that has not been resolved, because the outside organ of the lung is the skin, which makes sense, and Western medicine is now acknowledging that, right? If a baby is born premature, because the lungs are the last things to form, if a baby is born premature before the lungs are fully developed, they are much, much, much more likely, I forget the percentage, but much more likely to develop issues like cradle cap, psoriasis, eczema, and other skin issues because of this relationship between the lungs and the skin, right? And so grief can, if not resolved, can cause a myriad of issues of the large intestines, because that's its young partner, right? So stuck grief can cause like diverticulitis, right? Over long periods of time, it can actually contribute to the development of of colon cancer or lung cancer. And then, give me 2 minutes.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
need it to stand.
Okay.
I'm
And
so
then-
invested. I'm so invested.
And so the kidneys, which is the water element, the organ that impacts the kidneys is shock and fear. This is important, and we've seen evidence of it, and we even have stories of it, that you were so scared that your hair turned white. You hear that story, or you see movies where, like, what was her name? In the X-Men, the young girl, Rogue, right? Where she did this thing. Oh no, it was something else. But anyway, it's an example of how. So this is said because the kidneys govern the head hair, right, and the brain matter. The kidneys govern the head hair and the brain matter. That shock and fear, extreme shock and fear, can actually cause premature graying, right? I was in a car accident where I almost died, and 4 months later, my temples turned pure white. I color them now, but the hair on my temples turned pure white, right? So that's one of the things. Other things that the kidneys are huge. The kidneys control your ability to procreate. It controls what we call the organs of the lower jowl, right? Your reproductive organs. So in males and in females, it's one of the organs most indicated in infertility is the kidneys, right? And the liver and the gallbladder is the last organ. I think we're going to stop with the discussion of these emotions. The liver and the gallbladder, I told you, those emotions are rage, resentment, anger, frustration, jealousy, envy, and depression, right? And what it means when we're talking about these organs these emotions that negatively impact the organs. Emotions are not bad. Emotions help us to adjust to our surroundings, how we interpret external stimuli. They become what the Chinese called evil. When emotion becomes evil, it is when that emotion is not expressed and resolved. So in Chinese medicine, the theory is there are only 2 causes of all chronic disease. Only 2. Only 2, and heredity ain't one of them. Only 2 causes of all chronic disease. The first and least addressed is unresolved, unexpressed emotions. And second to that is improper food and drink. That's it. And so I've worked with people who are, quote, in their mind, the picture of perfect health. They exercise every day.
Is juice okay?
Juice is fine.
Sorry.
They exercise every day. They do all things right. I've worked with people who've been vegan for 20 years, and they're like, I don't understand it. I've always done the right thing. Why am I sick? Right? Yeah. I don't understand how I'm sick, and I've never eaten sweets. I've never drank. I've never smoked cigarettes or whatever. Why am I sick? And it is because if you root out all environmental factors in your intake process, then you have to start asking the questions. When did you first start seeing these symptoms? What happened a year prior to these symptoms? Did somebody die? Even if it was a pet, did you have to move? Did you have to move somewhere you didn't want to move? You know what I'm saying?
Unresolved emotions, baby.
And so it can be any expression of those emotions, but when a person is sick and they don't understand why, because they're, quote, healthy, again, unresolved and unexpressed emotional trauma is the first and leading cause of all chronic disease. Second to that is improper food and drink. You feel me? That's why we all got stories where my grandma lived to be 90 years old and she took a shot of whiskey every day. She smoked cigars every day. How was her emotional disposition and her ability to handle stressors? It was probably different than yours. That's why she lived long.
My grandma's 91. She's going to Africa in July.
See, that's what I'm talking about.
And she's like, fine.
So we all have those stories. This helps to explain all of that. And so one more thing. So a symptom that is common that can be explained by this right here. Say a person has acid regurgitation. Every time they eat, they have heartburn or, like the little regurg, right? Typically, this is a relationship between the liver and the spleen. You see, the wood governs the earth. Well, if the spleen and the stomach are about the breaking down and the metabolizing of food so you can extract the nutrients, and the wood element, which is the liver and gallbladder, which is a part of the digestive process, right? Something is happening where the wood is emotionally strained because it is the one that is the most fickle. It is the one that is most easily irritated. Of all of them, the liver is quick to jump off because we take stressors every day and we swallow them down. You can't cuss your boss out when he being a douchebag. You feel me? You can't drive in California and not be mad. Everybody in this city at least drive like they exactly. It's impossible to drive in California and not experience liver aggression, an aggression against your liver. You feel me? Right? You're a kid, say you're a teenager, and your parents don't recognize, your sovereignty, right? Like they don't recognize your autonomy as a whole human because, quote, you just a kid, and quote, kids should be seen and not heard, and your opinion don't matter because you don't pay no bills, but you have genuine things that you want to express. And so what do you learn how to do as a teenager? To keep quiet, to shut up, to don't speak. All of that is being stifled and stuffed down, and it may take it 10 years for it to come out. You understand? But it will come out. In Western medicine, they say that by the time a woman is able to palpate a tumor in her breast the size of an English pea, it took 10 years for that tumor to develop. What did it develop from?
Stress.
Now the idea, not just stress, because the idea is that we are 5-dimensional organisms. You feel me? We're 5-dimensional. We're not 3-dimensional organisms. We're 5-dimensional organisms. And so all disease, if you will, or all symptoms in the flesh, it is said that it started with a spiritual disharmony. That spiritual disharmony became an emotional disharmony. And by the time it becomes a physical symptom, it is the last stage of an old trauma. You feel me?
Can you say it again?
I said, by the time the Chinese, not just the Chinese, other systems of medicine that I've practiced too. Ayurveda says the same thing. Homeopathy says the same thing. That the origin of all disease, or what you're experiencing as symptoms, is a spiritual disharmony. And in homeopathy, they call it a miasm, a spiritual pollution. Something has happened to the spirit of you. And if that goes unresolved in the spiritual level, then it becomes an emotional level, an emotional expression. And if it is still ignored, left unresolved, in the emotional level, the last stage of the expression of a disharmony that has gone on a long time are your physical symptoms. Every single symptom that you have. People get treated for like allergies. Oh, it's just my seasonal allergies. No, it ain't. Sorry. No, it's not. You feel me?
This is so amazing.
So that's what I can give y'all for right now.
Thank you so much. Very insightful.
Thank you so much for staying. Yes. Yeah, thanks for sticking around.
Oh, it's so good.
This is amazing.
Thanks.
Ready?
Here, wait, let me take this off.
Okay. 1, 2.
The harmony.
That's
Thank
amazing.
you.
Oh, that's cute. That's a Polaroid?
Yeah, it's my business card. I'm a
That's
photographer.
dope. Oh, that's
so
awesome.
if you have any ideas for a photo shoot or anything like
Oh,
that,
that's awesome. Yeah.
let me know.
Cool. Yes.
I'm really trying to
What's your
make
name?
my portfolio less white people.
Oh,
I heard that.
if you want to shoot me, who's hooping?
Yes.
What's your name?
I'm
All
Jonah.
right, Jonah.
I'm friends with Bree.
That's what's up.
Oh yeah. Oh my god.
Thank you guys so much for
It's a
sticking it
beautiful
out.
photo. That was a gorgeous lecture.
Oh, thank you. Oh, this is great. I love this.
Have
This
a
is
good
super
one.
cute.
Yeah. Ginger, you're gonna hula hoop right now?
All right.
Funny.
Okay, you guys. So that was an attempt to record the workshop. No, y'all are good. To record the workshop. So many times I've taught it. We'll try to get a more professional setting, right? But yeah, there you go. Daughter of the Fates, also known as Cassandra Floyd. Tune in later. I'll probably have a live for y'all tomorrow. I'm thinking about doing a temple service tomorrow. I'll let you know in the notifications. Thanks for sticking it out. Peace.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. That was fun. That's all.